Hey friends, welcome to the Fundraising Leadership Podcast. It's your friends David Languli and Margaret Katz-Cam with you today to talk about emotions and energy and impact. So why don't you lead us in, Margaret?
We are recording this on the Tuesday after Labor Day, and I mentioned to David when we first got on our call together that after this 3 days off and a 3 day weekend, I had really hoped to feel rejuvenated and motivated and to tackle that, to-do list. And instead, I just am like,
In the doldrums,
really
you
just
said.
yeah, just a little bit in the doldrums. And so, we just wanted to kind of take a look at, well, other people who maybe had hoped to feel more rejuvenated than they feel, and what it might look like to just, I don't know, compassionately look at, like, hey, what's going on, right? Like, why do you feel that way?
Yeah, and some of you in the audience may have had these weekends, these holidays are times where family and friends get together, and sometimes those experiences don't leave you rejuvenated.
It's true. Sometimes, sometimes they're even really fun, but they have like a weird, different price tag. And it can be as simple as that we planned too many social things, right, over the weekend. That's one thing that it could be, or that there's something going on that ends up kind of sapping us a little bit.
Yeah, so why don't you share a little bit about the emotional environment that you went to that had you know, quite a bit of joy associated with it, but also some sadness.
Yeah, yeah. So on Saturday, I drove about 2.5 hours with my partner Kevin to go to his grandfather's 95th birthday party.
Mm.
And I was sharing with David, his grandfather is amazing. I mean, he still has such extraordinary mental presence, and he remembers everything that you share with him and asks questions. And he went from, group to group, and he has 5 children, and they were all there along with many of his grandchildren, great grandchildren, and he even has two, no, one great great grandchild who was there. So 5 generations all in one house, which was super, super wonderful. And I could tell he felt both honored to have all these people to have traveled, and also it was a lot, right? It was a lot of people. I think there were about 30 people there. And um, so, yeah, we had, it was nice. I mean, it was food that he liked. And at the same time, I got home and I just have been exhausted since then. And
Yeah.
I think, I think there was, okay, I said to David earlier, we almost always know when we're doing something for the first time, but we rarely know when we're doing something for the last time, right? We don't always know. Sometimes we do, but and this was one of those, like, sometimes we do, because, well, clearly he's never going to have another 95th birthday party. So that was a one-time deal, but it was also, I think, this gathering and this feeling of mortality and aging, and at the same time trying to be in a good mood and be happy and be at this party and enjoy the time. And that way, when sometimes the unexpressed, unspoken elephant in the room is all of this anticipatory grief and sadness, just
Mm.
in the whole space. So many of his relatives who love him and have looked up to him. He's just been this solid, loving presence for so long. And he's 95, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is, at some stage, that's going to be that for this life and this arc. And there was so much kind of unspoken sadness and grief in the space, and it just left me feeling in the doldrums, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, as you're retelling the story, I'm wondering if the what you said was actually named, like we're not going to have, we're unlikely to have this moment again. And it's a bit sad. I mean, I'm wondering if that would have lightened the space or like naming it as we encourage clients to do in our uh, emotional processing coaching, and actually go into it. If you feel that that would have helped you process it, and come out the other side of it today being a bit more rejuvenated. I'm curious what you think about it.
Yeah. I'm not sure I have the relationship with everybody there where they would have felt comfortable. I mean, as you know about me, I'm always comfortable talking about this stuff, but I don't know
Right.
that everybody else knows that about me. I will say in a funny moment, not funny at all, but in an ironic moment, I did get a moment of quiet talk with the birthday man. I guess we can't really call him a birthday boy at 95, but the birthday man. And he looked at me and he said, "Not too many more of these." So he named it.
He
He was
named
kind
it.
of like the only person there who was, I think,
Yeah.
in openness to what this meant. And I
Yeah,
said,
I think,
maybe. I said, maybe, maybe not, right? Maybe,
yeah,
maybe not. Yeah, but I
yeah,
hear ya. I hear ya. This was a good one.
yeah, yeah. I know you and I tend to, and you even more so than me, tend to encourage ourselves and others to lean in the direction of naming it
Yeah.
uh, in the moment. Uh, um, and this is I understand like in certain situations, people who are not trained the way we are, you know, that could go off the rails pretty easily. Yeah.
Yeah. It sort of begs this bigger question, when there is an elephant in the room,
Yes.
how do you deal with it, right? And I think naming it is
Yes.
one possible way, right? If it's safe, if it would be received, if it would clear a little
Yeah.
bit to
Mhm.
name it, even in one-on-one conversation, right? I could have
Yeah.
done a better job saying like, this is such a happy, sad day, it's so happy and yet like there's
Yeah.
something a little tender about it too. I could have said that. That's what I was feeling. And that would have been a way to maybe gently name it.
Well, hindsight is always 2020, and um, I do think you're more skilled at this than I am. I having uh, repressed, suppressed, uh, rarely expressed emotions for a lot of years. I that would be a more comfortable space for me to not say something, and I, like you, would be feeling the boomerang effect, or we sometimes call it the jet lag effect
The hangover.
of the hangover, right? So yeah, I don't think there's any right or wrong or, you know, this way or that way of dealing with it. I do think that, again, my experience is in some of the training we do that when people, you know, venture into naming what's in the room, uh, it tends to have a positive effect. It could also have at first a negative effect, which then leads to I've seen that happen too.
Absolutely. I think it can be really shocking,
Yeah,
right? Especially, well, there's a reason that we all repress emotions, right? Because we're uncomfortable with them and it's hard to give ourselves permission to feel them in public, especially feeling sad or despair or tearing up. That's something that
mhm,
most people would prefer not to do at a party, right? Or in front of lots of other people. And so it can be really uncomfortable to sort of name or invite acknowledging the elephant. At the
mhm,
same
mhm.
time, though, I think ultimately it creates safety more than it creates something different over time once we let the awkward.
Or the vulnerability of sharing creates safety in group environments, whether they be working groups, boards, teams. Um, but let's shift to a different emotion for a moment, because
Yeah.
I think there's one that, um, unless there's more you want to there's to say about the grief and sadness that didn't get named, and you're still experiencing some of the jet lag on that. Is there anything else to say on that?
No, I think just staying open, like I would love to think more about, are there some other tools to deal with an elephant in the room if
Yeah.
we get there? But go where you want to go and we'll either
Well,
get
fear is one. Anxiety is one that shows up in a lot of organizational settings.
yeah,
Um, Fear of getting laid off, fear of saying the wrong thing, or maybe, you know, uh, revenue or fundraising targets haven't are flat. In this current environment, people are experiencing that.
yeah,
And is there an invitation to sort of name the so I think the inclination is not to name this and to try to just plow through. I think that would have been my inclination for sure for many years. Um, my opinion is that it's best to create space where people can name what they're fearing, what their fears are, and grapple with that. And certainly, if you're the leader of this board or working group or team, to actually encourage folks to say, what they're afraid of, and without any reprisal, or without saying, oh, it'll be okay, give
yeah,
that's one that I think could be very effective in an organizational environment, and where we don't see very much of that, because then there's the fear of, if I disclose my fear, that somehow, I'll be seen as weak.
yeah. Or that the fear is of failure and there's no way to come to peace with that, right?
The fear of failure.
Right. If what the fear is of failure,
Yeah,
like
right.
that people don't believe there's any way to, like, what good would it do to talk about that? Because if I fail, that's the worst thing that could possibly happen.
Yeah. Well, that is the benefit of talking about it, is to say, well, what's the worst that could happen? And then you
Yeah. Or what
actually,
could we learn? Like, what might we learn if this thing that we tried actually does fail?
right,
If our
exactly.
fundraising is failing, what are we as an organization? How might we learn from that and try something different? But
Hmm.
that's rare in fundraising culture, I
That's
think.
rare.
It's rare everywhere.
Yeah. True. Um, So back to your question. So there's a situation where we're, inviting, if you're a leader in the audience and you really don't have a culture of inviting folks to share what might be on their mind in terms of what they might be scared of, then this is, you can tiptoe into this.
What
Of
do you think?
course, you
What do
have
you,
to go first.
yeah. What do you think? Right. What do you think would happen if, like, that was part of the beginning of a staff meeting? I'd love to go around the table and have everybody share something they're afraid of right now. So I
Well,
don't know. I don't know how
if you
that
don't
would
have
go.
a culture, that's just not gonna work.
Yeah.
I think if you are a empathic leader, and you're sensing the fear and you're feeling it yourself, then our my invitation is that you go first. And you speak unarguably about yourself and not about your teammates.
Right.
Just unarguably, you say, I've been concerned. I've been, afraid that we're, not going to meet our fundraising targets, and that's going to have a significant impact. That's how to do it.
Yeah.
And mhm.
I love what you're saying, David, because I think to like, you just made this really important differentiation about what might feel safe versus what might make the elephant suddenly double in size in the room, which is to you can only take responsibility and ownership for what you feel, and then you have to trust. Like if I speak in I statements about what's going on for me, people can pick that up and it can resonate
Hmm.
with them or not, but I haven't made
Hmm.
anybody else need to do something or agree with me, right? So if I walked
Sure.
around the party saying, God, don't you feel sad? Like, doesn't this feel sad to you? I think that would have been really uncomfortable. But if I had
Yes.
said in an I statement about myself, right? Just as
Yeah.
you're suggesting, like, whew, this is such a beautiful occasion. And I can't help but also like noticing that I have some heaviness in my heart at the same time,
Hmm.
right? It's such an important distinction.
Hmm. And um, to riff on that, if you've just come from a weekend where you were in an environment, as you were, Margaret, where there was some sadness and grief, to have a teammate where you can share that with, as you do in me, um, or even in the group. So we used to do a check-in when I was uh, leading a team at Princeton University. When this team had gotten in a good place with trust, people would come in from the weekend with um, stuff that happens in your life outside the organization. And we call this clearing, just to name what it is that you're showing up with and what's happening in your life that's causing you to be sad, down in the doldrums, anxious, you know, y- you're a human being, these things happen. And it was amazing to witness how once people cleared, they could get present to what was at hand, which was the work which was at hand.
Right? And if they don't
Yeah,
clear and they are legitimately sitting with something really hard that happened to them over the weekend, it oozes into, right? It
it
oozes, it
does.
leaches off of them, and everybody feels something. The meeting feels heavy, or it was a
Right,
bummer. The meeting was a bummer, right? Like, might be
right.
some ways
Or
that people
something was
would,
off, or you're sensing people have intuition, whether they exercise it or not is a different question. Whether they take action on it or not is a different question. But you sense that something's wrong with so and so. You
right?
can't quite put your finger on it. And everyone, then kind of might be on eggshells, right? I forget what color that is from our leadership program. Do you
Maroon,
remember?
I believe.
Maroon is
Maroon, that
eggshells.
like
Yeah,
light sort of
yeah,
anxiety. Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, this is a practice like anything else. Teams with individuals and teams with we would say high positive intelligence, also known as emotional intelligence, are able to venture into these kinds of conversations without the fear. There may be some fear going on, but in high trusting teams, they're not afraid of sharing. They're not afraid of reprisals for sharing something.
Yeah.
That's one fear. If you can get to that point, that you may have fears about other things, but you don't, in teams with high levels of trust where you're not afraid to share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say David and I have had the experience where maybe we've set aside an hour to do a project, and we spend the first 40 minutes just talking, catching up, clearing. And then lo and behold, the space is so ready that we get our project done in the 20 minutes that we have left. I mean, it's sort of funny
Or
how
we have to,
time,
or we have to reschedule
or
because
we have to
what's at
reschedule.
hand. No, I mean, it's true, Margaret. That happens more often
Sometimes
than not.
time bends. And I say this
Yeah,
because I think we feel like we have an agenda and we have a period of
right.
time and we have business that we have to get to. But it has been my experience that time is more fluid than we give it credit for sometimes in
Yes.
these, when we allocate time to have everybody get present. then we can accomplish more in the time that is remaining. Yeah.
That's that has been my experience of it. And there have been times when uh something happened or somebody names something that has nothing to do with the weekly agenda. That's such a big elephant that you have to deal with it in the time you have allotted and then reschedule the meeting to deal with the particles of the business. So, and we've done that too,
Yeah.
or yeah. So there's no right or wrong in any of this, folks. It's just feeling your way through.
Yeah. Literally feel, how do you feel your way through?
Right. So anything else to say on this? It's kind of a scary topic in some respects, you
Yeah.
know?
I feel like I'd love to just, I don't know, marinate a little, and maybe we'll have more in our next podcast. But I do think,
Yeah.
strategies to deal with an elephant in the room is that's an important topic for leaders.
Yeah. Certainly ignoring it, the ostrich strategy
Yeah,
the ostrich gets trumped by the elephant.
that's right. The ostrich makes the elephant bigger somehow, or more heavy, more takes up even more space.
Well, maybe we'll touch in. I mean, we do have a training program that we've helped many teams build trust and be more candid. It's called Growing Together through uh, trust, candor, and even conflict. I mean,
Yeah,
even when you're feeling the tension of disagreement, actually having the conflict in the room when the disagreement is there is actually the preferred way to go, but you have to
yeah,
have some skill and you have to have some understanding of how people deal with conflict. But we have a really good, 2-day training program that helps deal with these elephants.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and giving people some more skill to deal with the elephants.
So
Yeah,
what we'll do is we'll put a link to that program in the show notes, and if you're inclined to do some of this work, that 2-day workshop will give you an entry point into building trust, being candid, and dealing with conflict on your team. And it's very, very effective. So reach out to one of us.
and just to clarify, it's not 2 entire days; it's 2 half days. So we do an
Yes.
afternoon, and then we very deliberately want people to have overnight, and then we reconvene in the morning and we finish. So I
Yes.
say that because if
Yes.
you're panicking and thinking, no way, do we have 2 full days to put into a
Right.
workshop?
2 half days. Thank you for clarifying that. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
All right, friends. Well, and if you're just dealing with something in your own life, at work, at home, that you just want a confidential someone to talk to about it and process your emotions in a safe space, reach out to one of us and we're happy to coach you through that too.
Yeah. And if you have any ideas of how you have successfully navigated having an elephant in the room, we'd love to hear from you too. You can
Yeah.
comment or reach out to one of us.
All right. Well, that's it for this time and we'll talk to you soon.